Hey everyone, Kathy here. Welcome back to the channel. Today I hope you have some water and snacks on hand because we are going to hike up a rocky, precarious terrain, or at least our paintbrushes are. That's right, we're going to be painting a lovely mountain landscape with watercolor, a quick and simple painting that you can easily follow along. So grab your paints and brushes and your favorite warm sweater as you sit back and relax in our little cozy creative space. But first, if you're new, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell to get more videos like this in the future. Let's get to it. So I'm going to prepare a blue mixture for the sky. I'm mixing ultramarine blue with a tiny bit of Venetian red and white to create this really nice muted blue color. Ultramarine blue is meant to be the non-granulating version of French ultramarine, but it still has a remnant of granulation, just not as obvious. So I'm just gonna brush that down on the paper, which I pre-wetted with a spray, and I'm just going to carry the paint about 2/3 of the way down, leaving a bit of a white gap, a strip of lightness about halfway through. The top part is going to be darker in value than the bottom, so I'm just adding more paint to that area. When it dries, the colors fade a bit, so I'm just going to layer some more of the blue and use a spray to spread it smoothly over the sky. When that partly dries, I'm going to start on the mountains. So this is a brown tone mixture. I'm using mostly Venetian red, ghostite, and white, with small additions of the blue and ivory black. And I'm just using a round brush to gently paint the left mountain peak there, following the sketch and just using the tip of my brush to create those sharp, jagged shapes. In certain places, I'm dropping in some of the reddish-brown paint wet on wet. So you can see the edges softening out in some areas where the paper hasn't completely dried, which is exactly what I want. That combination of hard and soft edges. The middle mountain is the biggest of this cluster, and I'm just going to repeat the same steps. From the top, starting with a dark, muted brown wash that's kind of watery, and gently pulling the paint down. For this, it's easier if you turn the paper around and tilt it a little bit, and if the paint dries, you can use a spray to wet the paper again. Onto the first wash, I'm just dropping in some more of the reddish paint, streaking it down the mountain in long strokes. So at the base of this mountain, I'm going to paint in some grayish blue paint to depict the smaller rock formations that are standing in front of the larger mountains. And I'm just connecting it to the brown area, which is still wet, so we're gonna get a lovely soft transition between the two. For the left part of this formation, I'm dry brushing roughly over the paper, scratching out some highlights with my finger. For the right-hand side, I'm laying down more of the red-brown paint, wet on wet, alternating between the brown and the gray. So for the nearest rock formation, I'm using a dark grayish mixture that I made by just combining all the paints together and adding a bit of ivory black. And I'm just roughly brushing over the dry paper in a side-to-side motion. And this is going to leave small white gaps on the paper. This is cold pressed and Fabriano, which is smoother in texture than other paper brands, so the effect isn't as pronounced, but still we're going to get these white specks of highlights, which is exactly what I want. So I'm just trying to cluster the white spaces on the top right and also along the bottom of the rocks to kind of balance out the areas of visual interest. I'm also going to use a smaller brush to add details to the mountains on the right side. And because I rendered that part out, I'm also going to darken the values for the left mountain, again, to balance out the painting. And I'm just using a dark brown mixture for this. So to finish it off, I'm gonna add a figure to the painting. So here I'm just kind of practicing on a separate paper because painting tiny figures is quite tricky, which seems a bit counterintuitive, like oh, they're so small, and besides, who's going to see them? But they often end up being the focal point of a painting, or at least a part of the focal point. And I think having a figure that is crisp and confidently painted and reasonably person-like really gels an imperfect painting together. And it's something that I've been trying to improve on. It requires looking at the reference and then transferring the silhouette confidently onto the paper in just a few strokes. And also paying attention to the tones and where the light is hitting the silhouette. So I settled on a reference for the figure, and I'm just painting him over the rocks. And there we go. That was a simple mountain landscape. I had fun with this one, and I hope you enjoyed as well. Thanks so much for joining me. Take care of yourself, take care of your box of sheep, and I'll see you in the next one.